I love a black sheep character. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now for today's video, I'm doing another historical romance recommendation video for a specific trope, and the trope today is black sheep characters. Now I don't feel like that this is actually a trope and it's more of a character type, but I like it, so I'm just gonna put it as the black sheep trope. If you guys are unfamiliar with what a black sheep character is, it basically means that it's a family member or a member in a group that is the outcast. The family usually doesn't like this particular character a lot. Usually they have a dark upbringing, a dark past, anything that really impacted them and made them feel like that they were not worthy of love and that they were very different from everyone. So this trope also follows a character arc storyline where our character usually comes from a very sad upbringing, and then somewhere in the middle where the arc actually takes place is where an event takes place or they meet someone special in their life where they feel like that they finally deserve to be loved and that they feel like that they're finally accepted within the friend group or within the family that they're in. And then we obviously have our happily ever after. Now I personally love this character or trope a lot because usually these stories pull at your emotional heartstrings. I usually feel really attached to our characters who are the black sheep, and I just want to protect them and I want to hug them and I want to tell them that they deserve to love and to be loved and that they deserve to be fit into a particular friend group no matter how much they feel like that they don't belong. So for this video, I'm going to be recommending from a handful of historical romance authors. Some are new to me and some are not. So let's get started. With the first recommendation that I have for you, I can't really say that it is a historical romance. I can only tell you that there is time travel elements to it and majority of the book does take place in the modern present time. So I saw this book on Instagram under the hashtag Step Back Saturday, and as soon as I saw the Step Back, I knew I had to read this book, and after I read the description, I had to add it to my cart. Now this book is called Breath of Magic by Teresa Mederios, and now this one is a time travel romance that also includes paranormal elements to it. I wouldn't say that this is a pure historical romance, mostly because it has more paranormal elements to it as opposed to just normal life in the olden days. So basically what happens is that our female heroine is being accused of being a witch because she does a little chant here and there, she does some spell casting, she collects things that make people worried about her, and during that time, you know, witchcraft is not accepted, and if you are accused of being a witch, you are literally burned or you're drowned. So in the middle of her drama that takes place, she actually accidentally transports herself back into New York City where she meets our hero who is a billionaire and who wants to disprove magic. So they have an opposites attract romance starting with an enemies to lovers trope too, as well as these two characters kind of argue it out where they both accuse each other of lying or accuse of each other of being too pig-headed to realize that magic is real. I really like this one because our hero is actually the black sheep. He is not accepted at all by his family because he is the tech whiz and he is a nerd. So he loves to focus on his studies a lot, but then his family didn't like it that he was such a off-putting weird little boy who wouldn't talk to others. So he felt like he was isolated a lot of the times. So he built this tech empire simply because he wanted something of substance that he owned himself. And this is their story. A lot of my subscribers have actually commented on the videos that I talked about this book a lot and said that this was one of their favorite historical romance reads that was published this year, but it's from none other than Lorraine Heath. I love Lorraine Heath. She is one of my favorite historical romance authors, and when she was writing a new series called Once Upon a Dukedom series, I had to jump at the chance to go read the book. So the book that I recommend to you featuring this trope or this character type is actually Scoundrel of My Heart. This one is kind of a spin-off series from her original series of like Sins of All Seasons series, but it's not really. One of the characters is introduced in that series and now he has his own series is basically the plot line that you need to know. And Scoundrel of My Heart is basically about our hero who is actually the spare to the heir, so he won't get anything simply because he's born second in the family. So he wants to do everything he can to build his name, to, you know, build his reputation and all that. But what's the point when the one person that he really loves and wants to marry is looking for someone like his brother? So this romance involves these two characters who shouldn't be together, but they fall in love with each other through a friends to lovers romance that starts off kind of enemies to lovers, where they tease each other a lot, but it's ultimately a strong romance featuring two friends who can't keep their hands off of each other. Obviously, our hero does come from a little self-esteem issue, mostly because he was born second, so he looks down upon himself a lot, and he feels like that he is just kind of floating around and he's a waste of space, and my heart goes out to him. And if you're looking for another light historical romance other than the Lorraine Heath that I just recommended, then I definitely would recommend you to check out Wallflower Gone Wild by Maya Rodale. Now, this one features a marriage of convenience trope. Our female heroine has dedicated her whole life to becoming the proper lady and to building her reputation and to being a proper person in life, but what happens is that she is proposed to by our hero, who is actually nicknamed to be the Mad Baron. And basically what happens is that our hero is an outcast from the whole society and from the town because of rumors that he actually murdered his wife. So now our female heroine feels trapped in this like marriage of convenience because she's scared that she's going to get murdered by this guy who had a wife that mysteriously died and all these rumors surrounding him. But then also at the same time, she sees the kindness in his eyes. She sees the sweet gestures that he does, and she can't help but being more interested in him. And then meanwhile, our hero has to deal with all these rumors, this gossip, this ill reputation that he has, and he has to learn to not let those comments directed towards him to hurt him. And it's just so sad to see because obviously something has happened to him and he's not willing to talk about it, and just because he's not willing to talk about it, now he's being blamed for it. So if you guys are looking for a fun, flirty relationship, then definitely pick this one up. I definitely smiled so much when I was reading this one. I feel like I don't recommend Lisa Kleypas novels enough in my historical romance recommendation videos, mostly because I do read Lisa Kleypas here and there, and I've basically been a fan of her a couple years back when I was reading her older works, but her newer works haven't just been capturing my attention enough as opposed to the other authors that I am trying out. So that's why I don't really recommend her as often as I should. But one of the books that I want to recommend and point out in this video is actually Devil's Daughters, and this one involves a female heroine who has an enemies to lovers romance kind of thing. So basically she is a single mom and she is also a widow. Her husband has unfortunately passed away, but she loved her husband a lot, and she knew he had a bully back when he was in boarding school, and that bully just so happens to be our hero. So our hero comes from a murky, dark past, and he's not proud of himself because obviously when he was a kid, he was a tormentor and he made a lot of other boys' lives like living hells, and he got over it because he grew up, and now he has to prove himself to her that he is a respectable man and that he will treat her nicely in the second marriage. So you're going to see these two characters kind of get over their past in order to be together, and also self-reflect a lot to see if it's even morally correct to be marrying your late husband's bully. So another Lisa Kleypas novel that I would recommend for this trope is actually Married by Morning. Now I liked Married by Morning, but a lot of my friends actually didn't like it, mostly because our hero is like the ultimate like he showed up in like books 1 to 3, because his is book 4 in the Hathaway series, and he showed up in books 1, 2, and 3, and there were no redeeming arcs for him. Like nobody liked him. He was just always in the way, causing trouble, being ridiculous, not being the head of the household, not taking care of his sisters. Like he was just missing in action all the time. So he is very frustrating. But then when you get to his book, you start to realize that there are a lot of dark skeletons in his closet, and that he has a lot of grief that he has to get over, and all the anxiety and depression that comes with grief of losing a loved one too as well, and the guilt. It definitely makes your heart kind of sink every time you read about his thoughts and his emotions, learn about his experiences. So basically our hero has been a fool for books 1, 2, 3 in the series, and he has caused a lot of trouble, and he knows that he's a burden to his family, but he can't stop himself himself because he has all these underlying emotions that went towards his true love passing away in front of his eyes. He was married to his like true love, and he thought that he was going to be married to her forever, but unfortunately, you know, they both got sick one time, and then we all know that back then, once you get sick, it's a very dangerous time for you. So she ended up passing away and he ended up surviving. And now he has survivor's guilt over it. So now he also feels like he's wasting his life away and disappointing her in the process because all he can do is drink to forget her. Meanwhile, he can't stop thinking about the proper guardian that he has hired or that the family has to take care of his younger sisters. And he knows that he shouldn't be interfering with her life, and he knows that his hands are tainted with things that are not good, but he also can't stop thinking about her, and she ends up not being able to stop thinking about him as well. So it's kind of like an enemies to lovers romance too. I really enjoyed it, and hopefully you too will. So going back to Lorraine Heath, I would have to recommend this one book that started off her whole series called Sin for All Seasons series. It is book number 1 called Beyond Scandal and Desire. Now this one follows a very, very sad storyline. I feel like the whole series does follow a whole sad storyline. If you guys haven't watched it yet, I actually made a guide video to all the books, and I gave you my reactions and reviews to the books in the series. It's a very depressing one. It talks about what was a very common practice back in the olden days where baby farming existed. If you guys are unfamiliar with baby farming, it basically means that women of noble status or sex workers who work unfortunately got pregnant and they didn't have the chance to have an abortion, so they gave birth to the child, and then they gave that child away to either an orphanage or to someone who would get rid of the child eventually. So unfortunately, our hero has come from that background. His mom and his dad actually gave him up to this woman who is named as Miss Truelove, and then afterwards our hero feels like that he's been abandoned all his life, and he feels like that his family never wanted him. And he grew up with all this anger and resentment until he realizes that his father is actually a duke, and now he is so angry at his father for giving him up and for making him kind of live in like this very old and rundown house, that he grew up and he became a very successful businessman just so that he can take over the duke. Basically, the one thing that he wants to do the most right now to get his revenge is actually to seduce his legitimate son or his stepbrother's fiance, which is our main female heroine. And then this is the romance between these two characters. He has such a very dark past that when I was reading it, I got really sad. So just a quick forewarning, this one is not as lighthearted as the other one. But that is it for my quick little recommendation video for the Black Sheep character. Let me know what your recommendations are for Black Sheep characters in historical romances, and I'll be for sure to go check it out because, as I said before, I love this character type. It never fails to make me cry. But until next time, I'll see you guys again with a new video. Bye.